up here too.
This morning's exercises will begin. Representing the Memorial Day Committee, welcome to this year's Memorial Day exercises. Memorial Day brings up special thoughts to many of us, for it is the start of the summer season for many. But for veterans, it is different. For many of us have seen the cruelties of combat, and those memories don't fade. As we begin our morning's exercises, let us remember those brave deeds that were performed, and performed by those memorable heroes, and remember those deeds. During this brief ceremony, kindly concentrate your thoughts on the inevitable privileges that have been preserved through the efforts of brave people who have paid the ultimate in life. During the past year, 2 of our Legion members have passed into eternity. They are Thornton Millett and Norman Price. We remember both of them on this day for the sacrifices made to the betterment of our lives. At this time, Robert Johansson, pastor of the First Church of Christ Unitarian, will offer this morning's invocation. It is requested that all who can stand tall, remove headgear, and face the podium. Reverend Johansson.
Would you join me in the spirit of prayer? Holy and gracious God, source of all blessings, author of liberty and freedom, on this Memorial Day, we remember and give thanks for all those who have given their lives in the service of our country. When the need was greatest, they stepped forward to defend the freedoms that we enjoy and to win the same for others. These honored dead gave the most precious gift they had, life itself, for loved ones and neighbors, for comrades and country. Help us to honor their memory by caring for their families and for all their comrades wounded in body, mind, and spirit, and by being watchful caretakers of the freedoms for which they gave their lives. Give us the determination to work for peace so that their sacrifice might prevent others from having to give their lives, except in causes that are just and righteous and unpreventable. May our efforts for peace be the true legacy of their sacrifice on our behalf. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Johansson. As we are standing tall, let us honor our nation's flag by pledging allegiance to it. This morning, Joseph Hazelrig will lead the pledge. The flag flying above the portico of the town hall will be honored. Joseph.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joseph. At this time, our Neshoba High School band will honor us with the national anthem. Order, Parade Marshal. Order, Legion members, veterans, service members, and firefighters from the town green and secure for them a comfortable location.
Aye, aye, sir. Legion. Right shoulder. Arm. Forward. Punch. Left turn. Up.
Without General Logan's famous order, Memorial Day would lose much of its true significance. And this order defines our presence this morning. Olivia Early will deliver General Logan's orders for us. Olivia.
Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Adjutant General's Office, 446 14th Street, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. General's Orders, number 11. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, hamlet, and churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but post and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united together to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes? Their soldiers' lives were the reveal of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of a rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present, or to the coming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull, and other hands grow slack, and other hearts grow cold in solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remain to us. Let us then, at the appointed time, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the Jarrow flag they saved from dishonor. Let us, in the solemn presence, renew our pledges to aid and assist them whom we have left among us, a sacred charge upon a nation's gratitude, and the soldier and sailor's widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance, with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year, while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of the comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By order of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief. Official, M.P. Chipman, Adjutant General.
Thank you, Olivia. Our middle school band will play for us a march tune, Forward March. Thank you. members and Ms. Belle Helmer. We all know that Abraham Lincoln was a brilliant man. From his basic education, he was able to produce some exceptional speeches. Of course, the most famous of all speeches was the Gettysburg Address. Alexander Allison at this time will deliver Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that a nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you, Alexander. At this time, our middle school band will perform another tune for us. This time, Your Grand Old Flag. Again, thank you very much to the members of the band and Miss Bell Humor. Appreciate your efforts. This morning, Douglas McAloney will deliver the Memorial Day address. Doug has been a member of the post for the past 19 years and a resident of Lancaster for the past 40 years. Born on a farm on the North Shore, becoming a 4-H member and a Boy Scout, rising to the level of Eagle Scout, enlisting in the Navy, was selected to attend schooling for basic underwater demolition and deployed to the Underwater Demolition Team 2-2. Following 4 years of active duty, he joined the Naval Reserve with Harbor Clearance, Unit number 1001. Douglas is an advanced parachutist, private pilot, and amateur radio operator. He is married with 3 children and is employed as an application engineer with a large technological company. At this time, I'm happy to introduce Douglas McAloney.
Thank you, Henry. I thank the Lancaster Memorial Committee, distinguished visitors, and residents, young and old, of Lancaster, for being able to speak to you this morning on Memorial Day 2018. The American Legion was chartered in the United States Congress in 1919 as a patriotic organization of veterans. Delegates from combat and service units from the American Expeditionary Forces in Paris created the original charter. Membership is open to honorably discharged active duty members of the United States Armed Forces after 1919 with certain eligibility dates and is non-political and non-sectarian. These legionnaires dedicate themselves to continuing the values and principles for which they fought, including civic responsibility, preserving the history of their participation in American wars, and binding together the comrades who have fought. Memorial Day was officially declared into law as a federal holiday on January 1st, 1971, by a bill introduced in June 1968 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. It was the Uniform Holiday Bill, H.R. 15951, provided that 3 national holidays be celebrated on a Monday. The other 2 were Washington's birthday and Veterans Day. While many places, about 24 cities and towns, claim to be the birthplace of Memorial Day, President Johnson, in May 1966, officially declared Waterloo, New York, as the official birthplace of Memorial Day. Prior to being known as Memorial Day, Americans used the idea of Decoration Day, established in the 1880s for honoring the fallen of the Civil War. Major General John A. Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic, with his General Order Number 11, called for a National Day of Remembrance on May 5th, 1868. On May 30th, 1868, Major General James A. Garfield, 1831 to 1881, gave a speech at the Arlington National Cemetery for the first Decoration Day exercises. Part of his speech reads as this: I am impressed with the sense of impropriety of uttering words on this occasion. If a silence is ever golden, it must be here beside the graves of 15,000 men, whose lives were more significant than speech, and whose death was a poem, the music of which can never be sung. With words we make promises, plight faith, praise virtue. Promises may not be kept, plighted faith may be broken, and vaunted virtue be the only cunning mask of vice. We do not know one promise these men made, one pledge they gave, one word they spoke, but we now know they summed up and perfected by one supreme act the highest virtues of men and citizens. For love of country, they accepted death, and thus resolved all doubts, and made immortal their patriotism and their virtue. The American Revolution from 1775 to 1783 established the beginning of the United States, with 13 North American colonies banding together under the leadership of the Continental Army commanded by George Washington. The world was changing. The British government Stamp Act of 1765, the Township Tariffs of 1767, and the Tea Act of 1773 stated and started unrest that led up to the Continental Congress to vote for the Continental Army in June 1775. The Battle of Bunker Hill in June of 1775 was the first conflict. The British and American negotiators signed a peace agreement in 1782, and Great Britain formally recognized the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia signed the Constitution of the United States, which established America's government and fundamental laws in 1787. Colonial militias numbered about 250,000, and an estimated 6,800 Americans were killed. The population of the United States was about 4 million. America was a new unexplored country, electing George Washington as the first president in 1789 of the United States. By the time of the Civil War in 1861, there were 14 more presidents and 34 more states added to the Union. At the start of the Civil War in 1861-1865, it would determine whether the United States would be dissolved into a confederation of sovereign states or an indivisible nation under the direction of Abraham Lincoln. 625,000 Americans lost their lives as the conflict of North and their values defeated the South and their values. Clear winners were hard to define in the numerous battles. But when General Robert E. Lee arrived at Appomattox at April 9th, 1865, his retreat was blocked. He was surrounded, and rather than fight to the last man, he was forced to request a meeting with General Ulysses S. Grant, and surrender took place at the home of Will McLean in Bull Run, Virginia. Also, this was the site of the first major battle in July of 1861. The North suffered 360,000 losses, and the South suffered 265,000 losses. The reason for Decoration Day can clearly be evident by the great losses of citizens of the early United States. In the Civil War, there were 2 million Union soldiers and 750,000 Confederate soldiers. The population of the United States was about 34 million at that time. World War I, 1917 to 1918, there were about 4 million military personnel serving. There were 53,513 battle deaths. The population of the United States was about 100 million. World War I was the first war to see the terrible fighting in the trenches and the first use of chemical weapons in 1915. The war ended in November 11, 1918. World War II, 1941 to 1946, saw 16 million military personnel serving, and there were 292,131 battle deaths. The population of the United States was about 132 million. Victory in Europe was May 8th, 1945, and victory in Japan was August 15th, 1945. The Korean War saw 5.8 million military personnel serving. 1.8 were serving in theater. In theater is where the people actually fight at the front. 33,629 battle deaths occurred. The population in the United States was about 153 million. The Korean War ended July 27th, 1953. Vietnam, 1964 to 1973, had 8.7 million military personnel serving. Of the 3.4 million serving in theater, 47,365 battle deaths occurred. The population of the United States was about 190 million. Desert Shield, Desert Storm, 1990-1991, had 2.3 million military personnel serving. 694,000 were deployed to the Gulf. There were only 148 battle deaths. The population of the United States was about 243 million people. There are sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves. Sheep are the majority of us. While sheepdogs are the military, police, and firefighters, they stand by to protect the sheep from the wolves, foreign and domestic. While the population of the United States has grown tenfold since the Civil War, Only about 320 million participate in the military. This is at an, pardon me, there's only 320 million people in the United States. A small percentage of those, about 2 million troops, now participate in the military. Freedom for all Americans that they receive is paid for by a small percentage of the general population of men and women of the military who fight for freedom during wartime. Police and firefighters protect us in peacetime. Remember that for every frontline soldier, sailor, Marine, or airman, there are 10 more support troops, personnel behind them providing goods, transportation, and material they required. Reverend William T. Cummings served in Bataan, and he is famous for declaring, "There are no atheists in foxholes." In the books, The General by George Winston, about General George Patton, General Douglas MacArthur, General George Marshall. Another book, It Doesn't Take a Hero by General Norman Schwarzkopf, and An American Soldier by General Tommy Franks, to understand the realities of war, that no rules apply, and only winning at any cost. Being in the line of fire is no place anyone wants to be, but surviving the battle to fight another day requires the intervention of a higher power. Having personally had the pleasure to listen to General Norman Schwarzkopf, anyone, including the average American citizen, can understand the reason that America is great because the leaders who have stepped up to direct the troops in wartime. Civil War conscription was a method of enlisting troops. This also happened during World War I. The Selective Service Act of 1917 changed this. 2.8 million people, years 18 to 45 years old, were inducted into service, and they were mobilized. During the end of World War I, they were now demobilized. The first peacetime Selective Service Act started the draft between men aged 21 and 45 in 1940 for World War II and remained in effect until 1947. The draft elapsed until the Korean War started up in 1951, and then again was lapsed until the start of the Cold War in 1962. It was this effect in July 1973 the draft was finally ended. During the Vietnam War, draftees made up 25% of the military, or about 2 million soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen. And they represented 1/2 of the Army's battle deaths, about 15,000 in Vietnam. With the end of the draft today, all volunteer military is now much smaller, a force of about 2 million. The military is an adventure everyone should experience. It humbles all that apply and removes any attitude or chips on their shoulder. When I joined the military in 1969, the choice was to be drafted or enlist in the branch of the military that you wanted. The draft was mostly the Army, focused on brief boot camp and off to Vietnam. I went to the recruiter's office that day and chose the first one. The first one was the Marines. They were closed for lunch. So the Navy has been my choice ever since. Boot camp is an experience everyone should have. My first plane ride, my first experience with air sickness. My seatmate, also a Navy recruit, could not keep his lunch down. Next off was indoctrination at Great Lakes, Illinois. After receiving bedding, uniforms, and my first reverse mohawk, because the hippies were in the 60s, it's down the center for everyone that didn't like the hippies that were in the 60s joining the military that could be drafted. So it was a buzz cut, and I was in the Navy. The draft brought people of all selective service age, even juvenile lawbreakers, all under one roof. So I volunteered for anything special. The band, the drill team, anything that was there. I was selected for the drill team and became point man, marching with the Springfield 1903, much like you see here, for 8 weeks during basic training. The next was off to Navy's A School for fire control gunnery, of which you learned to direct the ship's guns to shoot down enemy targets. Graduating first in my class, I was selected for basic underwater demolition team. From not being able to do a push-up as a junior in high school, I could now perform hundreds at a time. Graduating from BUD/S, it was off to jump school and dive school. Qualified as the Navy frogman, I was ordered to underwater demolition team 22. There's no experience like jumping out of an airplane at 10 o'clock at night at 2,000 feet, roughly, with a helicopter going 2 miles an hour, or a C-130 going 140 miles an hour, or a C-141 jet going about 160 miles an hour, and hitting the ground or water 8 seconds later, ready to hunt for bad guys. So respect your American flag, respect your country, and respect your fellow citizens. Freedom is not free. The American military defends this fact every minute of every day. America is a great country, the greatest on earth, and I have personally traveled to over 30 other countries, Europe and the Far East, and know from boots on the ground, America is the greatest country on earth. So on Memorial Day, the National Moment of Remembrance Resolution was passed December in 2000, which asked at 3 p.m. local time for all Americans to voluntarily and informally observe in their own way a moment of remembrance, respect, and pausing whatever they are doing, just for a moment of silence or listening to taps. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doug. The wreaths which you see before me have been made by members of the Memorial Day Committee. The flower basket also before me was decorated by Ann Pascoe. The wreaths and the flower basket will be placed at war memorials later during this service. These symbols distinctly honor those brave men and women who have sacrificed their lives toward the calling of freedom which we enjoy. Parade Marshal, order the wreath and flower bearers forward to receive them and to secure them for placement later this morning.
Mark time. Ho! Left. Wait. Be the wreath. Just take the wreath. Wreath detail. Attend. Hut. Right face. Hut. Forward. Hut.
Long ago, a tradition was established in the southern states of planting flowers at the graves of both Union and Confederate soldiers after the Civil War's end. Gradually, this tradition progressed northward into the northern states. In maintaining this tradition, our heritage group will plant flowers at the grave sites in North Village Cemetery. At this time, could the heritage group kindly come forward to receive the flowering plants? Thank you very much. Parade Marshal, order Legionnaires, uniformed military, veterans, and firefighters onto the town green. Prepare the wreath and flower bearers for their assigned memorials, and organize the rifle squad to perform the honorable rifle volley. Parade Marshal, direct the wreath bearers to their appointed memorials. The wreath are to be placed accordingly. The large wreath to the World War I monument, known as the town flagpole. The 3 smaller wreaths at the World War II memorial, the Korean conflict, and the 3rd at the Vietnam monument. Another small wreath at the World War II plaque in the lobby of the town hall. The flower basket will be placed at the Civil War Memorial in the town library. The wreath memorizing the firefighters will be placed at the Firefighters Memorial at the Center Fire Station. Parade Marshal, direct the bearers to honor those departed veterans with the highest honor which they all deserve. Upon completion of those tasks, call the bearers back into parade formation. Parade Marshal.
Aye, aye, sir. Legion, attend. Hut. Wreath detail. Attention. Left. Straight. Forward. Hut. Right turn. Hut. Wreath detail. Up. Wreath detail. Place your wreaths. Wreaths are back in the formation, sir.
To some of us, the 3 rifle volley is the most exciting part of this morning's program. But this action has much more significance. The dramatic sound of rifles firing signifies to all of us the highest honor that can be bestowed upon our departed veterans. This rifle fire, followed by the haunting sound of taps and the echo taps, is a traditional and historic tribute to those fallen heroes, that their service will never be forgotten. The weapons used this morning are older than 100 years. We appreciate the efforts of our post armorer, Ron Art, who has the skill and knowledge to keep these weapons in firing order. We thank you, Ron. We kindly request that during the actions of the rifle volley and the playing of taps, that all who can take a posture of honor, including the removal of headgear, as a memory of our fallen comrades is remembered. Per regulations, the spent cartridges must be retained by the post. Our Boy Scout troop will police the firing area for all spent cartridges and return them to the parade marshal for inspection of misfiring. For safety purposes, everyone must stay clear of the firing area. The parade marshal will approve the safety zone. Parade marshal, order the firing squad out of formation and into firing position. And when all is ready, order the firing squad to commence firing and for them to remain in position until the conclusion of taps. And then upon the completion of policing activity, order the squad to return to parade formation. Parade marshal.
Aye, aye, sir.
Sound gaps.
Legion, order.
Anyone who has marched knows that to keep in step, a drummer is needed to provide a cadence. This morning, Maximilian Kelly is our drummer. We welcome him and appreciate his efforts. Thank you very much, Max.
Rifle squad. Port. And right. Right. Forward. Right. Right turn. Right. Right detail, back in formation, sir.
The Legion Post appreciates all those groups who are marching with us this morning. We consider it an honor to have you with us. Thank you very much. Ice cream will be served to all at the portico of the church later this morning. Through the direction of the Memorial Day Committee, volunteers have placed an American flag in every American veteran's grave in all the town cemeteries. The performance of this task to all the veterans is honorable and shows respect to them and is appreciated. The parade will form up immediately following the benediction along with their Memorial Drive and proceed to the North Village Cemetery, pausing for a brief ceremony at the Firemen's Memorial. Then the parade will continue to North Village Cemetery for a service with the firing squad and taps being played. The parade will reform into marching order and proceed to the town green, pausing briefly at the fire station for refreshment. Upon arrival at the town green, remaining in formation, and when ready, the playing of the national anthem by the Neshoba High School Band will conclude the exercises. The parade will be dismissed and this morning's exercises completed. Through the respect of our nation's flag, it is urged that all who can stand tall, remove headgear as the flag passes in review as a sign of respect. Members of the post are appreciative of those who have attended this morning's exercises. Will all those who are able to remain standing remove headgear as the benediction will be offered by the Reverend Robert Johansson.
Go now in gratitude for the blessings of liberty we have received. Go now in commitment to protect those liberties and live them to the fullest. Go now to honor those who won them and earned them for us. Go now to work for peace and justice and liberty for all peoples in this land and in all lands. Amen.
Parade Marshal, order all uniformed military and firefighters from the town green, placing them in a marching order on the Thayer Memorial Drive, and place all other marching groups into parade formation in proper sequence. And when this task is complete, give the order to start the march to the North Village Cemetery. Upon return of the march to the town green, hold all marching units into formation until the completion of the playing of our national anthem. Then dismiss all marching groups as exercises are completed. Parade Marshal.
Aye, aye, sir. Legion, right shoulder, and forward. Left turn. get you over here. Mark time. Halt. Right. Right. Forward. Hut. Step back and salute. Right turn. Hut. Forward. Hut. Halt. Left turn. Hut. Forward. Hut. Thank you for doing that.
Commercial free?
Other side.
Yes! On TV again! Hey! Oh, hey, now we're on video.
Firing squad. Hut tank. Hut. Port. Arm. Ready. Load. Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Ready. Aim. Rifle detail. Court. Arm. Right. Face. Forward. Hut. We'll just form back in. Color guard. Detail. Oh. Right shoulder. Arm. Right. Face. Return. Turn. We're good. Let's go. Hut. Waiting for that, huh? Guys just can't go in your room.